Lights go up, the crowd's in a buzz. Hawk talk, start from mighty thud. Voices sharp like a razor blade.
Oh, let me unmute that. Don't know why in the world that was muted. Things are going funky, but that's what happens when you're live. But welcome into the podcast. That was the entire anthem that Draven created. I think it actually replayed, started over in the middle for whatever reason, because we've been live for 5 minutes, and that song is not 5 minutes long. But nonetheless, that is the full song. So now you know where the background is. But today we're just going to look at everything. We're going to look at the compensatory picks. We're going to kind of wrap up free agency. Truly, the only major move that we have waiting is Aaron Rodgers. And my best guess is it's Pittsburgh. He is that type of guy. He's going to do it himself. I was reading and listening to somebody. I agree with this sentiment. Pat McAfee has a big thing in Pittsburgh. I think he's going to make it there. I think he's going to make the announcement there. I think in his own way he's going to try to make it big and grand and, self-centered, eccentric about himself. So I'm guessing Aaron Rodgers goes to the Steelers, which is the last quarterback domino truly to fall. It's really the last one. Russell Wilson is not a quarterback domino as far as I am concerned. Not a domino at all. I don't see it whatsoever. So the way that everything is going to be played out, I'm looking at this as a really simple thing. Shedeur Sanders is probably going to be a New York Giant. Cam Ward is definitely going to be a Tennessee Titan. So I think it actually makes the rest of the draft pretty interesting now of who's going to draft Jackson Dart, who's going to draft Kyle McCord, who's going to draft Jalen Milroe. When will Quinn Ewers get drafted? You guys know I don't like him as a prospect, but nonetheless, when's Quinn Ewers going to get drafted? I believe it really just leaves the rest of the quarterback class for when they're going to get picked. Now, this week, on day 2 of the NFL free agency, the NFL rewarded, and I'm going to use that term very, very loosely, rewarded teams for the coaches they have hired or coaches they have groomed or players that they lost in free agency. I don't fully support the compensatory picks. If you're going to be a league with a hard salary cap, everybody's playing by the same rules. They can play the rules differently, but they're all playing by the same rules. So with that being said, they do have compensatory picks. And this year, there are a good amount of them. 35 picks between 15 teams. And we're going to go down, and we're just going to go over the number of compensatory picks each team got. So we're going to start with the Baltimore Ravens, Dallas Cowboys, Miami Dolphins, and the San Francisco 49ers all got 4 picks each. That brings the 49ers total picks up to 12 in this draft. Let's go back here, because I was looking at this earlier. What does that bring everybody else to? Because we did have multiple teams that didn't have a ton of picks. And that was what we were talking about when we went through the snapshots. So let's go ahead and look here. Let's see, because the Ravens now have 11 picks. And the Dolphins were on the second page. The Dolphins have 11 picks. The Cowboys were one of the teams that only had 6. So now they have 10 picks. So you've got 12 total picks for the 49ers, 11 for the Ravens, 11 for the Dolphins, and then 10 for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, with that being said, the way that everything is, right now, these draft picks work pretty well. We're not gonna lie. These draft picks work pretty well. So I like the way that the outlook with the draft now looks for these teams. I really do. I really do. I absolutely do. But there's a lot of teams that don't get a compensatory pick. And because of that, you're going to have, like, we got here, let's see. The New York Giants get one. The Vikings get one. The Rams got one. Packers get one. Detroit Lions get one. So all those teams get one compensatory pick. The Raiders, the Chiefs, the Browns, and the Bills all got 2 picks each. And then the Seahawks and Chargers got 3 picks each. So where do they fall? Well, most of them are your later rounds, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds. However, there are 6 picks in the 3rd round at the end of the 3rd round that were given. So 6 teams now have an extra 3rd round pick. The Vikings, Dolphins, Giants. The Giants only got one, and that one was a 3rd round pick. 49ers, Rams, and Lions all get a 3rd round pick. 4 teams got a 4th round pick. The Dolphins. So now they got a 3rd and a 4th out of this. The Ravens, the Seahawks, and then there's the 49ers again. So the 49ers got a 3rd and a 4th. And then you have the 5th, 6th, and 7th is the rest of them. They all clear out, which is when you normally expect them. But the 3rd and 4th round picks, let's be honest, those are picks that give you the ability to trade the one you originally had. That's the picks that really give good teams the ability to become great teams, because those role players from the 3rd round matter. And they matter a lot. So we'll go over the draft obviously a lot more as time comes in. But let's go ahead and look at free agency. Let's go ahead and spend 15 minutes on free agency. And when you go through it and you look at who everybody has signed, you look at the amount of players signed, which is a very big indication of whether or not improvement has been made and what has happened. I will tell you this, the teams that don't have a lot, some of them are the ones you're expecting to compete at the top level. Not gonna lie. Really not gonna lie. Now I do believe that free agency is a lot of B plus players can be there, down to C players, and then stopgap fillers. That's normal. We understand that. But there's 2 teams that are competing, for lack of a better term, that don't have a lot of moves that I have noticed. Now, one is really young and still trying the upward trajectory. One has been at the top for a while. That is the Baltimore Ravens and the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers have made basically 4 moves. They signed the offensive guard Aaron Banks to a 4-year, $77 million deal. That was big for them. Very big for them. They signed Isaiah McDuffie. They re-signed him. Then they signed corner Nate Hobbs to a 4-year, $48 million deal. And they re-signed their kicker, Brandon McManus. That is the Packers' moves right now. Now you may be thinking, well, what else do they have to do? I said it. They're too injury prone. When have you had a healthy receiving core, skill player position? Like Josh Jacobs still was injured last year. He had a great year, but he still was dinged up. Your receivers haven't been healthy in how long? Your tight end haven't been healthy in, come on. It's one thing of wanting to stay young, but it's another thing to not be making a move to fix an area that can kill your team quickly, very quickly. And they haven't been aggressive really on the defensive side of the ball. They got the corner Nate Hobbs. I think Jair Alexander's still going to get traded, so it's not that big of a deal to me, really. Now, when you look at the Baltimore Ravens, it looks even more interesting. So they re-signed Ronnie Stanley to a 3-year, $60 million deal. They re-signed their fullback, Patrick Ricard, to a 1-year deal. And then they signed DeAndre Hopkins. To me, that signing is the biggest one because you have injuries. Zay Flowers has been injured. You needed a veteran. Guess who doesn't have DeAndre now? The Chiefs. Guess who's got receivers that are only in trouble right now? The Chiefs. The Chiefs do need to make a move. I will say that. The Chiefs right now, when you look at everything, they really need to make a move. They re-signed Hollywood Brown. He's been injured every year the last 4 years. They are taking a big flyer on their offensive line, Jalen Moore, 2-year, $30 million contract. They're trying to figure out how to protect Patrick Mahomes. They are. But I really think at this point, Joe Thuney's a big loss. DJ Humphries obviously isn't. Jalen Moore hopefully works, but he may not. When you look on the other side of that division, the Las Vegas Raiders. Here's something, and this is what I want to go over here for a couple minutes. Teams that are rebuilding are no longer rebuilding in 3-year increments. They're rebuilding in 2. Some of them they're rebuilding in 1.5. It's 1 year and then till Thanksgiving. That's the rebuild. The Las Vegas Raiders will not be happy going 6-11. They won't. Nobody in that organization is going to be happy going 6-11. They have signed Alex Kappa, the offensive guard, 2-year deal. They have signed obviously they got Geno Smith for a 3rd-round pick, and they're working on a long-term deal now with him. Geno Smith just needs to bring stability. I'd sign him to the same deal that Sam Darnold got. Absolutely would sign him to the same deal Sam Darnold got. The quarterbacks in this free agency aren't making money. Matthew Stafford, Sam Darnold, then you've got everybody else like Daniel Jones and all that. There's not a bunch of high. Justin Fields got $20 million a year. Geno Smith hasn't proven he can really win. He's trying to bank in on the quarterback position money, not that he's actually really that good. So I'd sign him to a 3-year, $110 million deal, just like Darnold. They're probably going to end up being around the 130 mark, but nonetheless, they need stability. They re-signed Max Crosby. They re-signed Malcolm Kuntz. They re-signed Butler. They signed Landon Roberts, and they signed Eric Stokes. They also got Jeremy Chin. So the defense, although it did lose Robert Spillane, which to me was big. He was a very important part of that defense last year. The back end got stronger. Jeremy Chin is a really good safety, but so was Trevon Moehrig. The Chargers, they have been active. Check this out. They signed Taylor Heineke back to a 1-year deal, and then they agreed to a deal with Najee Harris. They re-signed Jalen Reagor. They also re-signed Mike Williams is back with the Chargers on a $6 million 1-year deal. They re-signed Bradley Bozeman. They signed Deshaun Hand. They re-signed Khalil Mack. They signed Naquan Jones. They re-signed Tier Tart. They re-signed Troy Dye, Denzel Perryman. And then they got the secondary help. Dante Jackson, veteran, 2-year, $13 million a year deal. Elijah Molden, 3-year, $18.75. Benjamin St. Juste, who has been slightly a bust, agreed to a 1-year deal. So, with that being said, what does the rest of the AFC look like? right now. Honestly, the Titans probably have been one of those teams that are making the underrated moves that are really going to affect them. Now, I said this in the short last night, yesterday. I don't get all the 1-year deals. I don't. I do not get the 1-year deals. The Tennessee Titans signed Dan Moore Jr., the offensive tackle, to a 4-year deal. They signed Kevin Zeitler, which I said the Lions should. They signed Zeitler. So that offensive line for Tennessee, not half bad now. They got Zeitler on a 1-year deal. But then this is where I get really confused. They signed Draymond Jones, who got cut by the Seahawks, to a 1-year deal. They re-signed Sebastian Joseph Day to a 1-year deal. They signed Van Jefferson to a 1-year deal. They signed Cody Barton to a 3-year, $21 million contract. That one they did do okay. But all these 1-year deals, I know the Titans are rebuilding, but those are veterans. Draymond Jones has been absolutely a solid defensive player. You want him as a second guy on that defensive line for a couple years, not just one. So I think these 1-year deals are going to stop some of these teams from really improving. There's a lot of issues with them. I have harped on the Houston Texans for not being aggressive enough in the offensive line. And I still say the same thing, although they have absolutely improved in many areas. I mean, Christian Kirk, I believe, is actually going to be a really underrated trade. Nico Collins with Christian Kirk, I think, is big. They signed Justin Watson away from the Chiefs. I think that's also going to be a big deal. But the way that these teams are playing these 1- and 2-year deals, I don't get it. If you've got to rebuild, you've got to rebuild. You got to sign guys and have legitimate time with these guys. Looking at the Giants, they've made a lot of moves here. James Hudson, the offensive tackle, 2-year deal. Chauncey Golston, the edge rusher, 3-year deal. Roy Robertson-Harris, 2-year deal. Chris Board, 2-year deal. Paulson Debo, 3-year deal. Javon Holland, 3-year deal. Their punter, 3-year deal. The Giants are rebuilding. They need continuity. They need guys that know what to do. For goodness sakes, they re-signed Darius Slayton to a 3-year deal. That is what a rebuilding team needs to do. I don't get all these 1-year deals unless you're... even with the Bills, like the Bosa deal, I don't like. I don't like for a different reason. I don't like because you need him for more than 1 year. Josh Allen's window is not 1 year. The cap's going to go up next year. Sign him for 2. Have the guy here for 2 years. It just doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense to me. We will have a team-by-team podcast next week. Obviously, the Washington Commanders, just this list, holy cow. They re-signed a bunch of their own guys. They went out and got a couple different players. I do want to give credit to the Eagles. They did get Josh Uche, but once again, 1-year deal. Now, I think he's really going to work well for Vic Fangio, so I think that's a 1-year deal that's absolutely worth it, 100%. But you look at Washington, you know where they're going. you know what they're doing. But they once again did 1-year deals. Eddie Goldman, 1-year deal. Sheldon Day, 1-year deal. Bobby Wagner, 1-year deal. Jonathan Jones, 1-year deal. It's just, I knew Zach Ertz was going to be a 1-year deal. Like, that one I knew. He's older, fine, whatever. But they are doing some continuity with it. But you're a team, you just got Jaden Daniels. You're a team that's going to be in the Super Bowl window for a while. Why are these 1-year deals? Why? I don't get it. So, I don't know. We'll have to see how everything plays out. The Bears, day one, were really aggressive. They've definitely tapered off since then. Some of these teams just can't be aggressive. The Vikings have really been focusing on their defensive and offensive lines, to their credit. And then they replaced a bunch of people in the secondary. They got Isaiah Rodgers and Tavier Thomas. Theo Jackson. They re-signed Harrison Smith for his 14th season. My gosh, that guy's been around for a while. The Falcons, once again, continuity, but they bring in some new guys. So we'll see how all this plays out. Like I said, next week we'll have the comprehensive list going down each one of them. But all in all, one thing you can tell of every single one of these, the line rules. Every single one of these, you can tell the offensive and defensive line is what everybody's looking at. Everybody's trying to make a move there. And you know what? They should. They really should. Because I think the Eagles kind of just exposed the way that you can win in this NFL now. All right. How are we going to close this out? Let's close this out. Let's talk about the wonderful barb between DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons. For those of you who have not seen, DeMarcus Lawrence got to Seattle. And he said that Dallas is his home. It's where he lived. It's where his heart's always going to be. But he knew he was never going to win a Super Bowl there. And Micah Parsons decided to come back and call him a clown on X. And DeMarcus Lawrence responded with saying, "If you focused more on winning instead of tweeting, I may still be there." Okay. My generation, I have despised ever since I was brought up in it, okay? The work ethic is a lot lower. It drives me nuts. Overall, it's just not good, and that's why, unfortunately, the kids that you have coming around these days, it's even worse than it was in my generation. Work ethic just isn't there. Well, wanting to gab and run your mouth is more common now than it's ever been before with social media and everything else. Here's the reality. Micah Parsons hasn't tipped anything in the favor of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, really neither has DeMarcus Lawrence, but if you don't feel you're going to win a Super Bowl, it should be okay to just be honest and not be called a clown or be called anything for it. I'm going to completely side with Lawrence. He saw the reality. Brian Schottenheimer is your coach. Give me a break. You have a coach that wasn't even on anybody else's radar. But your mastermind, Jerry Jones owner, found what he wanted. No, he didn't. They're going to go 4-13. And what's going to be bad is if they go 4-13 and the Giants go 6-11. They're going to have a really good pick next year. I side with DeMarcus Lawrence on the barb, but I hate it because it's unnecessary. Why is Micah Parsons calling a guy he's 32 years old? The guy's been on the Cowboys. He got drafted by him. Why in the world? This is what I do not get about this generation. They got to open their mouth and try to have the last say when it had nothing to do with them. The Cowboys aren't winning a Super Bowl anytime soon. The Seahawks probably aren't winning a Super Bowl anytime soon, but you know what? They're a lot closer to the playoffs than the Cowboys were. They were technically tiebreaker away from getting into the playoffs. So with that being said, I hate all the talking. It's fun. It's comical. But really, that's all it is. That is really all it is. You know what, guys? And that's going to be it for today. Free agency week, a lot of different things happen. The compensatory picks is a big thing this week. It's what a lot of teams actually wait for. And there are some teams that really got help that need to be able to get role players, need to be able to stay below that cap. So 12 draft picks definitely helps with that. Will it turn into wins? Nobody knows. But the draft picks definitely help. So I will have, like I said, next week, starting on Monday, comprehensive, focused look at who each team signed and what they still need to do through the rest of the free agency into the NFL draft, which we have in, let's see, it's the 20th, so it'd be just over 5 weeks, right? Yep, just over 5 weeks. 5 or 6 weeks away now. So we're heading into draft prep. I've been watching March Madness. I'm also going to have the March Madness podcast next week, getting ready for one of my favorite tournaments. One of my favorite times of year is March Madness. I love the purity of it. I love the passion, and it is one of my favorite times of year, so I will have that podcast next week as well. But for a Friday, you guys have an absolutely great one. Make it the best weekend you can over the weekend, and I will see you guys on Monday with another episode. We'll do the free agency. The March Madness podcast I'll probably throw into Tuesday. That way we can get them in before the play-in games take place, and then I'll continue with the free agency recaps after that. But guys, until next week, thank you so much. Thank you to all those who watched the shorts. The shorts have been my most successful things. I'll probably do one later today as well. They have been the most successful, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much. Subscribe, like the podcast. I deeply appreciate it. Make it the best weekend you can, guys. Make it the best weekend you can. For Sports Talk with Hawk, until next week, I'm Hawk, and I'm out. Have a great weekend, guys.